Hi, beautiful sixth grade. So let's talk about today's lesson. All right. So this is the lesson summary. So that talks to you about what you should have learned in my class today. So the lesson summary is the value of a ratio. AKA, when we talk about the value of a ratio, what we're really talking about is when we write that same ratio as a fraction. So the value of a ratio can be determined using a ratio table. The value can be used to write an equation that also represents this ratio table. So what that's talking about is we can look at the relationship between what's happening to this number, from this number to this number, what makes this number over here on the left turn into this number on the right. This number on the left, well, in this case scenario, 1 is being multiplied by 4, and you'll see that same relationship happening here. So we're taking whatever this number is right here, and I'm going to call it x because I'm just making that up. And we're multiplying x by 4 to get this second number. We're going to call this y. So for this example, this relationship, I'm just going to say x times 4 equals y. And I just meant this number times 4 equals this number. And I use variables because variables are like a blank box. You just enter it to show that we don't know what the number is. The multiplication table can be a valuable resource to use in seeing ratios. When it says multiplication table, I think it just means this ratio table. Different rows can be used to find equivalent ratios. And what it means by that last sentence is that this is a ratio pair, this is a ratio pair, this is a ratio pair, and this is a ratio pair. So 1 to 4 is equivalent or equal to 2 to 8. And we can see that as a fraction, 1 over 4 is equal to 2 over 8, which is what we worked on in class today. So that's what we learned in class today, in short. And let's talk about how this impacts your homework. So I'm gonna help you with one homework problem. And this is the part that I noticed you guys are struggling on a little bit, is the actually reading through the problems and making sense of it. And for that, you're supposed to use Grizzly's Read. And I noticed some of you guys are like skipping that part. Like you're not reading through the problems, you're not trying to make sense of it. So that's essentially the work. You need to start doing that more and more on your own. Try to make sense of what these words mean and why they're important. So it says, a cookie recipe calls for 1 cup of white sugar. 1 cup of white sugar and 3 cups of brown sugar. So 1 cup of white sugar, I'm just going to put a 1 right here because it says white sugar right here. And it says 3 cups of brown sugar, so I'm going to put a 3 right there. And it says, make a table showing the comparison of the amount of white sugar to the amount of brown sugar. So believe it or not, I still have students struggling with this. So when you see a ratio table right here, all you have to do is skip count. What do I mean by skip count? You literally look at what number is right here and then count by that number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You just count it by ones. You look at this number and you skip count by that number. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. The reason why you're doing that is essentially you're taking this top ratio, and for this second line, you're just multiplying 1 and 3 both by 2, which gets you the 2 to 6. Then for this third line, you're taking the 1 and the 3 and you're multiplying them both by 3 to get you the 3 and the 9. Fourth line, you're taking the 1 and the 3 and you're multiplying them both by 4 to get the 4 and the 12. So this is exactly what you did with equivalent fractions when you were in the 5th grade. So I'll give you an example. If you take 1/3 and you multiply it by 5 over 5, you're going to get 5 over 15. Remember in the 5th grade, in order for something to be an equivalent fraction, you had to multiply both the numerator and denominator by the same number? That's the same thing happening in this ratio table. You're taking the 1 to 3 ratio and you're multiplying them both by 5. And that's showing you what this ratio is. Because 5/15 is equivalent to 5 to 15. This is just how you write this number as a fraction, and this is how you write this number as a ratio. They're equivalent in value. They're different formats than how to write the same thing. So hopefully, if you've been struggling with the ratio chart, that makes a little bit more sense to you. Again, hopefully, and if not, I want you to ask me questions below in the comment box, ask me questions in class, because that's kind of the essential thing that I need you to understand about equivalent ratios. So next part, you have to answer these 4 questions about this table. So I'm gonna look through it and I'll quickly just like answer some language here to help you out, but I actually want you to do the homework part. So number 1 says, write the value of a ratio. Value of a ratio, we talked about that earlier in this video. Value of a ratio means fraction. So write the fraction of the amount of white sugar to the amount of brown sugar. You should be able to do that. Write an equation that shows the relationship of the amount of white sugar to the amount of brown sugar. I'm going to help you out with this one a little bit. I'm going to give you some hints. So my first hint to you is you're going to use this W. You're going to use that W in your equation for white sugar. And you're going to use this B in that equation for brown sugar. You're also going to look at the relationship between what is happening to this number to make it turn into this number. What is happening to this number to make it turn to that number? What is happening to this number to make it turn into that number? Find that pattern, and that's going to be how you create the equation. So the equation should be, use a W, it should have a B, and it should have the relationship between those 2 numbers. That's very important to you. Next, explain how the value of a ratio can be seen on a table. This one, I think you can figure out. You need to be able to explain how the relationship between ratios and the value of a ratio. Last but not least, explain how the value of a ratio can be seen in the equation. And that one's a challenge problem. I think this is not optional, you still gotta do it. But I want you thinking about, how does all of this connect to one another? Can you answer that question on your own? Try your best, I think you got this. Have a great evening.